What's up, everybody? Long pregnant pause. We are here even after that game. Chargers fall 3-1. Giants get their first win of the season off a rookie debut of Jackson Dart. We were talking before we got on. It's hard to even figure out where to jump off, but I guess the first thing we got to discuss, Craig, is the game plan, the direction in which this offense was trying to go, and I guess defensively what they were trying to accomplish, because I'm not sure whatever they were trying to do, they were not effective for 4 total quarters.
Yeah, so we are here, albeit begrudgingly, and yeah, let's just talk about let's get to the meat and potatoes of it. So there's equal blame to go around as far as the coordinators are concerned. But let's start with Greg Roman. Historically, Greg Roman has been someone that's taken a lot of flack for being super conservative, just banging his head against the wall in the run game, and like just always leaning on the run game. Like that's what he reverts to in almost every situation, and it's paid off for him, successfully throughout his career. And in other instances, it's probably what's gotten him fired. And then he gets here, takes him a little bit to adjust to Herbert, figures out, oh man, I've never had a QB like this. We should probably like sling the ball around the yard a little bit. And then they come out this year, and that's exactly what they do. But the run game takes a while to get going, and up until today, it really hadn't. And then you get into a game where it was already going to be super rough before Joe Alt went out. And somehow the game plan was to show up and play the Giants with that defensive front and ask your quarterback to drop back to the tune of 41. Now, granted, some of this is based on circumstance and where you got to the game and like having to play from behind and pass the ball more. But even in the instances where they were able to get it going in the running game, and we all saw Amari and Hampton, we'll talk about him in detail in a bit. When he really got it going, that was your opportunity to then stop your 5 and 7 step dropbacks and do a little bit more play action, because then the defense had to respect Hampton because he was on a heater, but they still didn't do it. And you still allowed your quarterback to get teed off on. Even after Joe Alt went out, you didn't adjust. And for that, this is exactly the reason why it's really, really hard to believe in Greg Roman, because for every step forward he takes a huge one back. And today makes me feel like he went an entire week without really, if this was his plan A, then there clearly was no plan B, because there were no adjustments made after Alt went out. They just stuck with whatever plan A was, and this is the result. There's only so many miracles you can pull out, or magic you can work, and rabbits you can pull out of a hat. When you don't have guys to protect your quarterback and you want to drop him back this many times, then you're asking for trouble. So ultimately, if we're speaking to just the offensive side of the ball, we can talk about defensive and mentor in a sec. But I want to say that collectively, I feel like Greg Roman failed the offense. Justin Herbert definitely had a bad game, but all things considered, look what he was working with. And now the question becomes, what are you going to do moving forward? Because this team's now 3-1, which on its face is great. But after that loss, and then looking at what you have to deal with now moving forward with regard to the guys that are protecting 10, I don't know what direction you go in.
Yeah. Going 3-0 in the division, you look at this game and you don't feel as bad, but currently it feels terrible to go into New York against a winless team, one that's been getting beat up on recently. And I get Jackson Dart had his first start and Russell Wilson just wasn't dynamic enough to bring them to any wins. But I'm confused on exactly what they thought they were going to accomplish on either side of the ball today. And the Chargers of old was always due for a trap game. And it felt like, you could look at after going 3-0, this felt like an easy, like going against a new, revitalized offense with Jackson Dart and how confident they were going into the week. You thought something like this could happen, and it surely did, but you don't expect a Harbaugh-led team to be as flat as it was for 4 quarters. I mean, they had some great splash plays by Hampton and QJ, but like outside of that, defensively, they got the pass rush going, but there were no turnovers. Offensively, like Keenan was quiet. Ladd was not good today, which I'm sure we'll get to in a little bit. Hampton had he had 2 great runs, one of which he took to the house. And then I mean, what did they really expect with this defensive front, which seems like the real bright spot of this Giants team, which everybody knows? Why they would want him throwing the ball, 41 times, I'm just not sure. And then defensively, knowing how mobile and athletic Jackson Dart is, to go through 4 quarters without somebody accounting for Dart at some point. I mean, the third down defense really let them down today, but it's disappointing because you felt like, the worm had turned or whatever from last week. Going 3-0 and winning close games that they normally lose, but to go out like this so flat and go down early and never even really come close. I mean, you're close in terms of the box score, but it just felt like all day today they just couldn't get anything going. That defense was too much for them, and losing Joe Walt sucks, but when they lost Rashawn Slater, it felt like they were still able to get stuff going, and Trey Pipkins was enough to get them to 3-0. But now it just, and I get it, having 3/5 of your offensive line out there is not pretty, but it's disappointing and it's a bad look for a Harbaugh team to go on the road like this to a game they should have absolutely had a cakewalk through, to overlook a team like the Giants and just kind of fall flat is tough. It's really, really tough right now. And through a month going 3-1, you're kind of okay with that. Having 3 division wins is great. If you had to lose one and learn from something, having an NFC game is good, but hopefully they can take this and it'll motivate them, because they if they go on this trajectory, this is going to be a really, really bad slide, because these teams only get better from here.
Yeah, we did get caught up in the middle of the Brian Daboll Bowl, save his job, and we fell victim to it because there were a lot of things that were questionable in this game. We could talk about the officiating. I hate complaining about the refs, but there was some really weird stuff that was going on today. I don't even know if that's worth talking about, because it just kind of drags everything down even further if that's possible. But collectively, between the two, like, we already spoke on Greg Roman, and you mentioned defense also. Jesse Minter, I'm not sure. I get it. You're showing up to a game where there's no real NFL tape on the quarterback that you're playing against. But here's the thing. That if all else fails, Dart's probably going to use his legs because he's rather athletic, probably a little underrated in that department. But if he's a 1-2 read guy and he doesn't see it, he'll probably take off. The fact that happened early and there were no adjustments made to put a spy on him drives me insane. I mean, he was even able to be a little mobile later after he tweaked his hamstring, and there's absolutely no excuse for that. I want to assume that initially the plan was to box him in, just keep your rush lanes tight on the interior and force him to try to escape the pocket on the outside and maybe be able to get your edge rushes to him that way. But it just didn't happen a ton this game. He was escaping in the middle of the offensive line, like through cavernous holes on the interior. There were a couple instances where guys overran him and they didn't have rush lane integrity, but I went into this game assuming that the first half would be a little weird because it would take Minter a second to see what vibe they were going to roll with as far as like how they were going to deploy Dart and then make the adjustments in the second half. But then you come out in the second half and you find yourself actually getting after him. I mean, how many times did they sack Dart today?
Like 5 or 6.
Yeah. So you were clearly able to get to him, especially after he was hurt. But then where you really shot yourself in the foot were all these 3rd and longs. Because to me, there's no excuse for on the money down not being able to get off of the field. And although the defense was not having its best day, I mean, you can look at it statistically and see all the pressures and the sacks, but the problem was they weren't getting off the field when they needed to, and they weren't being super opportunistic. That fumble on the almost on the goal line, them not recovering that was probably the difference in the game. If they recover that fumble, 9 times out of 10, they're able to get the ball on. I'm assuming that they're able to score from the 1. And then the Giants are really pressing the score. Now, that probably gives your defense a little bit of a boost. And maybe you're able to squeeze Dart because as the game went on, he wasn't as effective. But this came down to poor game planning, poor execution for what you did call, and then the fact that there were no real adjustments made. Like, I'll give Greg Roman credit for this. He saw that Hampton was really starting to get it cooking, and so he fed him the ball a bit more. Still not enough, in my opinion, but at least he gave the kid an opportunity to go out there and make a difference in the game, which he did. That's about all the credit I'm going to give him. As far as Jesse Minch is concerned, I have questions because we've all praised him. We still think he's an incredible defensive coordinator, but it feels like this was that game where you had to have the defense dialed in because it was already going to be an offensive sludge. Like asking Herbert to drop back, and I promise you, I know that I posted this somewhere. I don't remember where it was, but if you thought last week was an issue, going into this week, you had to be even more concerned with this defensive front because their D-line is actually better, like at least from an athletic standpoint, as far as talent goes, than the Broncos are. And asking Justin Herbert to continuously drop back on more than like 3-step drops consistently was a recipe for disaster. So not having the running game be incorporated into the game plan as much as it should have been. I mean, they only ran the ball 13 times, one of those being a Justin Herbert scramble for a third down conversion. It's inexcusable. And now we talked about this just moving forward in the weeks to come, like not even looking, super far down the line, but just even next week, what's the game plan for that? Like you have to already be thinking about it because now Joe Alt's going to be out for however many weeks potentially with the high ankle sprain. And you've just got a bunch of backups that you're going to allow to just, be out there on their heels every play, going backwards instead of forwards more often than not, and allowing Herbert to get teed off on. So this should be a lesson learned for both coordinators, but also Jim Harbaugh is going to have to put his foot down. And I think he's got to chew both of them out if he isn't already.
Yeah, so the spy issue was, I think, something everybody was complaining about. It just felt like Dart was able to get whatever he wanted, especially on third down. And we saw going into that Chiefs game how Henley was the spy for Mahomes, who would always run and get those first downs, and they wanted to negate that. And having Henley be the spy on Mahomes worked beautifully for the first game. And I'm concerned that after halftime they don't try to make that adjustment. And then, you see Malik Neighbors go down, and then, you've only got, they've got Slayton and nobody else really to account for. And then, so then if you sell out to stop the run, which I thought they were going to do after Neighbors goes down, and you limit Scatabo, hopefully, and Dart, hopefully, and make him pass the ball, it felt like it was going to be a pretty easy sled after that, but it just didn't work out and they couldn't get it done. And I don't want to bag on the defense too much. I think Dart had like just over 100 yards passing. And they had to play with a short field twice with that Sexy Dexy interception, which is just a fluke tip to himself. And then the second one, another fluke, Conklin tripping Ladd. And
oh God, Conklin.
Yeah, Conklin, and then Fisk dropping that pass in the middle of the field that floated in the air for like 12 seconds. They can both go. Just have Gadsden take over from here. Both interceptions, kind of fluky interceptions, but the Giants are able to capitalize, and then they bring it down within, in the red zone immediately on the return. So they were dealing with short fields for most of the game. And then, and then they gave up, 11 points on those turnovers. And then towards the end of that game, they needed to make a goal line stand, and the defense did by a beautiful poke-away by Alohi Gilman on fourth down. And then the Chargers have a chance to go downfield and then win this game, and they didn't. So the defense ultimately, while giving up 21 points, still gave Justin Herbert and this offense a chance to go down and score. And so they, of course, that doesn't happen. Herbert, gets sacked real bad on that third down. They got a punt again. The Chargers get another stop, but then there's just not enough time, and Herbert couldn't get anything manufactured. So defensively, I think, they gave up less than 100 yards. I think Scatabo had under 80, 90 yards on the day. Slayton, didn't have like 50 yards. So it's not like they gave up a ton of yards on the ground. There wasn't a ton of splash plays. It just felt like outside of that second drive or first drive, whenever they scored that first touchdown on Jackson Dart, outside of that one, it was all just kind of, off of turnovers and short fields. So, and off of I think, did they score off that J.K. Scott shanked punt? I can't remember.
I think that was the
They,
one that got stopped by Gilman. I think that was
yeah,
the punt before the Gilman. Yeah. So they
right. So they're
almost.
Yeah, so they were playing with a lot of short fields today. So they ended up getting it worked out later, but it just felt like in that first half, that third down defense was just terrible, and they were getting carved up. So I'm not bagging on the defense too much. There was some weird stuff going on today with the turnovers and all that, but offensively is the bigger issue with Joe Alt out now, which, a high ankle sprain, he's going to be out for a little bit, but at least they knew Neighbors tore his ACL, right? Isn't that what they ended up
That's
saying?
what I saw as a note.
Yeah. I think that's what Schefter was tweeting out. Like they knew immediately. So for Schefter to say it was a high ankle sprain, I guess is good news. So he should return. But getting carted off, you kind of fear the worst. So, Joe, they're going to have to find some way to hold steady until Joel gets back. But offensively, they've got to figure something out because today was not the day. And this is a defense that, gave up a lot of yards and a lot of points the first 3 weeks. And today, only giving up 18 to a red hot Chargers offense. That's no bueno today.
Well, that just kind of played into the Giants' hands. And as you mentioned, defensively, I'm not saying that they played a terrible game. Like statistically, they played a pretty solid game all the way around.
Sure.
But it's like you mentioned, they had their backs against the wall on short fields, but also the part where you have to be able to make hay is on 3rd and long. Like there's no excuse. I think they gave up. I didn't keep count. I know there were at least like 3, maybe 4 big 3rd and long conversions that were allowed, whether it was to Dart using his legs or him finding a guy just beyond the sticks to continue drives. Them being out there a lot, I'm sure they were probably a little gassed. I get all of that. The short fields, absolutely. All things considered, it could have actually been worse based on how the offense was performing. So for sure, they gave the best effort they could under the circumstances, but there's still some areas that they have to tighten up. You can't give up 3rd and longs to a rookie QB like this. You can't allow them to continue to keep momentum and have themselves surge and put you in a position to where you're having to play from behind with a makeshift offensive line. Offensively, again, what I'm not quite understanding is the rationale behind taking your quarterback and just saying, hey, go win it for us, regardless as to what's happening around you, or should I say in front of you. You're the guy. You have to go make it happen, but not giving him the opportunities to make it happen from a play calling standpoint. If you're going to throw the ball that many times, you have to incorporate some sort of quick game concept, especially on the perimeter. If you got guys just harassing Herbert like a second and a half after the ball touches his hands, and you can't ask him to evade pressure, wait for guys to break open on like crosses or deep routes with that type of pursuit. Like this wasn't your typical defensive line. They've got 3 pass rushers that all run like sub 4.5, something like that. So Herbert's going to have to be on his horse while you're allowing time for our receivers to get open. And by the way, speaking of receivers, the only guy that really showed up today was Quentin Johnston. This is becoming a reoccurring theme, though. He's consistent all year long to this point. Ladd just didn't have it today. I don't know what was going on with him. Drops, that's like, I don't get it. I'm not understanding it. That's not a regular thing. Hopefully that's just a today thing. But on a day when you needed your wide receivers to be on the top of their game because of everything else not working as far as protection is concerned, they didn't deliver. Like you mentioned, Tyler Conklin, he can go. Because, that second pick was literally caused by him. How do you clip Ladd McConkey on a pick play that's supposed to account for the defender, but instead you hit your own receiver? And Herbert was trying to place that ball where he thought McConkey would be, but because of what Conklin did, whole play got screwed. I don't know, like just kind of based on what I saw, I'll go back and watch it at some point. I'm not looking forward to it, but I still don't know whether or not that ball should have been thrown just based on where the defender ended up. Watching the broadcast view is hard to tell. But what I do know is that your offensive tight end your tight end cannot be the reason why that play doesn't work. He can't be the reason why your wide receiver isn't in place to make the play. So you can chalk that one up to Tyler Conklin.
Yeah.
As far as the rest of the passing game is concerned, dude, you just got to give the guys that are playmakers an opportunity to get busy with the ball in their hands in short areas. Did it with Quentin Johnson on a couple of slants. But other than that, I didn't see very much of it throughout the day. It was still all downfield, longer developing routes. And in a situation like this, where you've got that sort of defensive front, that hellacious defensive front getting after your quarterback, that's just inexcusable.
There was a stat today. There was a next gen stat that they Herbert was pressured on 50% of his dropbacks today, and he got rid of the ball at a 2.5 second clip. So to think that Justin Herbert couldn't get 3 seconds today, he was getting the ball out at 2.5 seconds and still pressured half the time, is an insane stat and just shows you how terrible the offensive line was today. Because he normally is not getting the ball out of his hand that quickly, but to average 2.5 seconds per snap or per throw today, they just didn't have it today. And obviously missing big portions of your line doesn't help, but it was terrible, especially when you look at how good Hampton was. And I know we mentioned that a little bit earlier, but
yeah, but see, the thing about this is like when you're talking about QBs and pressures going into the day, before Joe Alt was out, you knew it was going to be a problem, which is why I don't quite understand what Greg Roman did for an entire week.
Yeah.
What were you looking at? You clearly knew that you were there last week. You saw how many times Herbert was hit, 14, 15 times, sacked 5 times. And you knew you were going against a front that was potentially better than the one you just dealt with. And yet there was nothing to account for it. It's almost like he goes into these games expecting the best case scenario. And then when it comes time to flip a switch or maybe go to plan B, then there really is no plan B. Herbert only being pressured on half of the attempts surprised me because I thought it was more than that. To me, it felt like it was more than half of the dropbacks. I literally felt like every time he touched the ball, he was under siege. There might have been like a solid 5 or 6 clean snaps that I think that he got he was able to drop back on, and then the coverage was just really good. So he was still having to wait and fit balls in the tight windows and make these really difficult throws. But I mean, you're the leader, you're the QB, you got to do what you got to do. But the other side of this is another game where he didn't use his legs very much again. That's 2 weeks in a row.
Mm-hmm.
So no design QB runs. Not all that pressure was coming up.
2-point conversion.
Right.
Yeah.
Look, I guess they saved the best for whenever.
Yeah.
But the fact that your quarterback is going to be under siege to that degree, you ask him to drop that back that many times, you don't include design QB runs in games like this to try to keep the defensive line honest, to make them really think about getting upfield the way that they are against those offensive tackles is ridiculous. And as much credit as I think we've tried to give Greg Roman, the funny thing about this is when you needed him to be and do the most Greg Roman stuff ever, he refused to do it, which is weird to me because in general, as human beings, we always revert to doing what we know best when our backs are against the wall. But that didn't apply for him today, and I still don't understand it.
Yeah, and so after that Dexter Lawrence interception, Hampton ran off 2 really good runs.
Mm-hmm.
And then Herbert drops back and the Giants bring the house. Like they went aggressive. They rushed 6 at that point. They brought everybody and they countered it with a screen, which Hampton took for, over a first down, but over 10 yards. But it really, after that, started to open up the passing game. And it felt like the pass rush was being negated by, quicker time passing. And it really helped Herbert move the football. And you thought like, oh, they're starting to get it together. Then some penalties kind of, stalled the game and it wasn't as effective. But that series felt like, they were setting up Hampton early to, get some big chunk plays on the ground and then set it up with Herbert passes. But then after that, Herbert dropped back and did a 5 to 7 step drop on 3 straight plays, and they didn't run Hampton at all. So they had like spurts of like, oh, they're going to turn it around, but it was flat. And I know a lot of people were talking about, like on Twitter, and the announcers mentioned a couple times about West Coast teams on the East Coast playing that early game usually becomes a snoozer, but I mean, this is a game they should not have lost. Not a game that they should have been even that close. As we're talking about things that shouldn't happen anymore, like Conklin, Scott Matlock,
Oh
you know,
God.
that play can't happen, nor should he see the ball. To be honest, he shouldn't be on offense. I don't want to see him anymore. But Tarheeb still just cannot be a returner anymore.
Oh.
His lack of urgency while fielding a punt or a kick was so frustrating today, where he was just dancing, waiting for, I don't know, a giant lane to open up. He just would not get downfield. He danced, he waited for a hole. He was not good. And, you know, at the end of the game, when they needed a return to, like, you know, flip the field a little bit, he just kept running backwards and running backward. It kept going backwards, tried to turn a corner, got tripped up. I mean, they needed somebody, which I felt like KLS. He did it in college. He's got the speed. He's got the experience. I don't know why he's not the guy back there. Why still isn't getting upfield? I don't know. He was terrible today. Hopefully Darius Davis gets back soon, but if not, why not just have Jalen Reagor do it? I mean, I don't want him on my team either, but he has experience doing it. Like, they need some kind of veteran punt returner. If it's not Reagor, somebody. It just felt like Reagor was an easy name to throw out there, but they got to figure something else out, because Tarheeb still cannot be returning kicks anymore. Let him be the CB1, and, you know, don't let him field kicks anymore.
Well, that's the other reason why it doesn't make any sense, because he's one of your top 2 starting outside corners.
Yeah.
So you have KLS, who was active today. He was on kickoff return. The logical thing to me to also save the chances of Tarheeb still potentially being hurt, because he took a shot on one of those returns where he got bent like in half.
Folded. Yeah.
And I thought it was it. I thought that was over. It was done for him. It was disgusting. The fact that he hopped right up, totally shocked by it. So again, it just makes logical sense to have KLS back there as your return guy. More explosive, more athletic. Tarheeb's like a high 4.5 dude, but he was returning punts like he had Tyreek Hill type agility and speed, like just waiting, and eventually I'll just outrun everybody. But I don't know if they feel just secure with his ability to securely catch a punt, and maybe not KLS. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I just don't understand the rationale for putting him back there if you needed a play to be made. And this is one of those games where you needed field position. And that's the other thing, in conjunction with what made the day so rough. You've had an offensive line that's bruised and battered, and then you're starting a lot of your drives from inside of your own 20, and you're having to try to make hay and build out drives to get down the field and score points that way. I mean, they did it in the 2-minute drive on the big QJ catch and touchdown and right before halftime, but the rest of it was really slow going and difficult. So you have to put someone back there that can maybe get you an extra 10 to 15 yards in the return game. And Tarheeb was not doing that for you. More often than not, it was either negative or just maybe a handful of yards. So that again comes to making adjustments in game, which I don't feel like was done on it really on either phase of the game, in any of them, special teams, offensively or defensively. It was all just kind of everyone was asleep at the wheel. So no real adjustments being made where they needed to. Like you mentioned, Scott Matlock, like let's not make that a thing ever again. In a game, if you were up and you were just doing it for fun, I could understand.
Sure. Yeah.
But in a comeback where you're fighting, clawing, and scratching to get any sort of yardage whatsoever in the passing game, and the best you can do is Scott Matlock. I don't even know what the route was. I just looked up and saw 44 making a reception. I'm like, why is an offensive lineman catching that's Scott Matlock? Gotcha. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Let's stop. Let's do things that make sense. And again, Amari and Hampton, hats off and salutes you for having a big day. You should have had more touches than what you actually did. And especially when you're talking about riding a hot hand in a game this close, if nothing else is working for you, you knew 8 was. And I truly don't understand why he didn't become more of a focal point there later in the game, more screens, maybe some more passes out in the flats. What really impressed me about Hampton today, to be completely honest with you, was in scouting him. I know a lot of people said that he was a good receiver, and I'm like, okay, he's a decent receiver, but the majority of the catches I saw were like passes out in the flat, shovel passes, things of that nature. today you saw him catching balls like 7+ yards out, comebacks. I think I maybe saw him run a curl, something of that nature, and making hands catches and getting the ball upfield after the catch. So I was really impressed by that alongside those huge runs. You're showing the development that we need to see from a running back that we took in the first round. But again, I cannot stop wanting to slap the back of Greg Roman's head for deciding that this guy didn't need to get more touches when it was clear that he was the only really big play threat you had, because even QJ was finding himself lost in coverage a couple times, and Herbert was looking to get the ball to him, but the Giants were doing a pretty good job at covering him up, and there weren't very many other options. Ladd was pretty much a ghost today, and I mean, Keenan popped up here and there on third downs, but outside of that, just offensively, if this is the direction you're going to go in, or you've got this many guys down on the offensive line, then yeah, it's going to be a really, really long rest of the year. And we should be very fortunate that this team won its first 3 games within the division, because at this rate, they're probably going to need it if things keep up the way that they're going right now.
Yeah. And just to clean up, I know Rager's not on the team anymore. I'm just saying it's a familiar face that they could pick up on the wire if they wanted to, or just a sign in general. They need some kind of veteran returner, because Still can't be doing it next week. But yeah, I mean, 12 rushes on 128 yards and a touchdown. There was so much good from Hampton today. It was great to see him against, again, probably one of the best defensive fronts in football. To get that many yards was awesome. We saw on one of everybody's favorite, I'm sure, is that 3rd and short where he broke it and just used his strength and effort, got 18 on the play. His TD run was pretty impressive, where he hit that hole hard. He outran everybody to the end zone, and then he made a really, really nice run on a 3rd down, backed up near their own their own goal line, and was able to take it around the corner and take it down the sideline. So showing off that speed too, not really known as like a home run hitter, so to speak, but definitely able to outrun all those DBs to the end zone. He had an amazing day, really good in the as a receiving weapon as well. But yeah, it's tough, because it felt like QJ was able to get it when he needed it. And that throw by Herbert, by the way, on that touchdown pass, there's not many quarterbacks in this league that can make that throw.
I feel like we say that every week.
Yeah, I know. It's every week there's some kind of highlight throw from him. But yeah, I mean, they got it before halftime, and you felt like they were going to turn a corner. They were just flat. Nothing worked today. Keenan was quiet. Ladd had just a terrible game. That first 3rd down drop just felt like it was an omen for the rest of the game, because he dropped another 3rd down pass on a contested catch. Fell down because he got tripped by Conklin. There was just not enough going on today. I think he only had 1 catch.
Yep.
But he was targeted, I think,
5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Which
it was
not the norm.
No, not at all. And then while we're giving shout outs, we got to, of course, shout out Thule, who they counted 4 sacks today, one of which was like a design run. Like Dart was trying to run and Thule tripped him. I thought it was a rush attempt at that point, but they gave it to him, at least in the scorebook. So they gave him 4 sacks today. The first one was just kind of like a hustle sack on a 3rd down.
Yeah, it's more of a coverage sack.
Yeah. And then one where he just was free off the edge. But, today it felt like Thule really used his pursuit and his strength to really get after Dart today. We didn't really... I don't know. He always just kind of felt like he couldn't get anything going for the first 3 games. But today it felt like him and a couple others really got after the quarterback. Caleb Murphy, Derwin each had a half a sack. Thule had 4. And then the Egg Boy had 1 today too.
There you go.
So I think that's 6.
Yep,
today.
6 total.
Yeah, 6 sacks today. But good pass rush today.
Yeah, thing about Thule is, and folks, I still want another edge rusher, by the way. Phenomenal day by Thule. He won a lot with power. And like you said, not taking anything away from him on those first 2 sacks, kind of sort of circumstantial, but you still made the play, and that's what matters. Definitely. Even if it comes by coverage, that means you hustled. You didn't give up on the play. You did what you had to do. And Dart didn't see him on that second one. You didn't make an adjustment to slide protection or anything. And he just had a free lane to tee off. That one on Russell Wilson, though, I feel like he forklifted the tackle into Russell and really just because that's Tuli's game. Solid. Well, I would say an elite edge setter in the run game, but that's where he wins with power. It's less about technique or speed or flashing off the line with quickness. It's more for him effort and power. So that's going to win a lot. But then when you go against those massive offensive tackles and you don't win with leverage, then, sometimes he will be a little bit more quiet. You'll see that he got like maybe a few pressures, but not as many sacks. So definitely want to give him props because defensively, he was probably the biggest standout for the day. And tackling Cam Scatterboo is no joke. And you saw it all day long. Like, guys were rallying to the ball. I want to give them props for that. Like, he didn't have any really tremendous runs, like from an efficiency standpoint. I think he rushed the ball for, what was it? Let me see here. Had 25 carries for 79 yards. So from an efficiency standpoint, not great. It's 3.2 yards a carry. So when defenders were getting to him, even if they didn't get him with the first guy, they were rallying and gang tackling him and like not allowing him to do like his patented, shrug off 3-4 dudes. And then, I'm up the sideline or whatever for like another 30-40 yards. So there was none of that today. And they pretty much kind of slowed him down in the passing game also. So again, this is all leaning towards making sure that we give props to the defense for playing a pretty good game, all things considered. I mean, I know you look at the scoreboard and the Giants have 21 points, and you look at some of the other teams you played this year that you were able to hold under that, and it just kind of doesn't make sense. But again, with context, field position wasn't in the Chargers' favor today, and trying to overcome some other obstacles on the offensive side of the ball just didn't really work out for him in general. So there's a lot to work on this week moving forward. Like, got the Commanders next week, and if you thought it was hard to contain Jackson Dart, need I say more?
Yeah, it's gonna get tough from here, but there were a few positives. Hopefully Tuli can continue on his role because he was great today. I do want to shout out Herbert for saving 4 points on that tackle on Dexter Lawrence. Cam Hart made a touchdown saving tackle on a rollout where
also.
It tripped them up and they settled for a field goal. So there was, and I can't remember who made the tackle after the interception on the Ladd play.
Keenan?
Maybe.
I think it was Keenan.
Somebody, yeah. But off of all those, there was no touchdown. So, able
to
save.
Wait. Are we sure after that one, what the Jackson Dart shovel pass, didn't that come after the second pick?
I will look that up because I'm not sure.
Initially, Keenan saved it, but then I think like a couple plays later that the touchdown on the shovel pass came
after each interception they punted.
Really? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Never mind. 42-year-old dad brain.
I think. Hold on a second. No, they got a field goal off of one. That's right, and then off the other, they got a touchdown. You're right.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah.
You're
right. That was a dad brain. You're right.
But yeah, so yeah, that's what I thought. So granted, they hustled to the ball to try to stop some easy pick sixes from happening. It saved a touchdown in one instance. It still resulted in another, but still, you can't give a team like that with a rookie quarterback short fields to play with because they're already riding momentum. And then, when you're talking about what you're doing in the playbook, there were certain plays that they had specifically for him in certain instances, and you're getting the ball inside of the 5 and the 10-yard line, and it just kind of opens up a world of things to do with the guy who's mobile as a quarterback. So they didn't put themselves in the greatest situations, and ultimately, we don't do kicker talk on here, but again, I'm saying this, J.K. Scott, I'm tired of this happening. He punts great until you need him.
Yeah.
Then he screws the pooch almost every single time. I don't know how. It's almost a mental thing. Like he like his butt puckers or something like that when it's crunch time, and he just needs to do the one thing he has to do, and he can't get it done. You can count on it. It's like clockwork. It happens again today, And instead of the Giants having to have a long field to drive, they get in the scoring position. And thank God for Alohi Gilman and his heroics in the end zone, giving the Chargers an opportunity, stopping a 4th down conversion. And, at least, again, it was another long field they had to play with, but at least they had a chance to potentially go down and maybe tie the game at worst. But I guess it just wasn't meant to be today.
Yeah. This was when you just gotta wipe clean and flush it and move on, because there wasn't a lot of positives, but hopefully the few that you had, like Thule continues his hot streak. I hope you build off of this Hampton hot hand we had today. But outside of that, they got to move forward and move on to Washington, because this was a bad look today in New York.
All you can do going forward with this offensive line literally limits what you can do from a playbook perspective, but where you have to start, like literally the foundation of the playbook, has to be the running game and play action and quick game. Everything that's 5 to 7 step drop, I'm not saying you have to eliminate it altogether, but they have to be few and far in between. You can't come out on a drive and have 2 and 3 straight plays where you're asking Justin Herbert to drop back 8 to 10 yards and allow routes to develop when he's got less than sometimes 2 seconds to be able to do that. Or as soon as he gets the ball, whether it's in shotgun or under center, he's literally having to run out of the pocket, and then you cut half the field out as far as options are concerned. So yeah, Greg, take this game for what it's worth. I'm not going to say burn it, because you definitely need to watch it and learn from it. But what we did today, you can't do going forward. And you're going to be dealing with this exact offensive line for at least a few weeks, because high ankle sprains aren't something you just play with, and they linger for a while. So Alt's going to be dealing with this for a bit. And you're just going to have to, if they got to line up in 13 personnel and have like 3 tight ends out there a lot of the game, do what you got to do, man. You got to protect 10. You got a horse back there in the backfield in Hampton. Give him his 20 to 25 touches, whether it be on the ground or have it be on the ground and through the air, since he can do both. And you're just going to have to grind out some games for right now until you can get that offensive line back, because Mekhi Becton was out with the concussion, so hopefully he's out of protocol. He was just playing okay before that anyway, but you just got to hold up until reinforcements arrive, because one thing you're not going to be able to do is trade for solid offensive linemen, because that's not something that happens in the NFL.
Nope.
You can probably get another pass rusher potentially, but as far as O-linemen go, you can pull some guys off the scrap heap and maybe they fit your system. Otherwise, just got to batten down the hatches and wait for dudes to get back, because trading for any good offensive lineman is going to cost you significant draft capital, and that's if any team's actually willing to do it. Yeah.
Well, it would make this day a little bit better if hopefully some of these teams in the AFC West lose. That could loosen the sting a little bit. I know the Chiefs got Baltimore today, and they were losing last time I checked. I know the Bears have the Raiders in Vegas. Hopefully they can. And then I know Broncos are Monday night. I think it's the Bengals. But yeah, that could help. So now that's all we can do at this point, because I don't want to rewatch this game. I don't want to think about this game anymore. And I don't want to talk about it anymore until as soon as we get off this podcast. I'm ready to just let it go.
I'm right there with you.
All right. Cool. Okay, guys. Thanks for joining us, even after this ugly game. We appreciate you guys. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for being part of the Discord, liking and sharing and all the stuff you do every week. We appreciate it. And we will see you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Salute.